He- Hello, Lee, and hello, everybody in YouTube land. Um, Welcome to episode 3 of Sophia Risen.
Hi.
Hi. We by the way, we did change the name of our show for those who watched the first couple of episodes from Sophia Rising, because that's kind of it's a bit of a meme that's been used by a couple of people for different things, and also Sophia Risen means it's happened, it's done, and now we're in the integration period of the return of the divine feminine, the kind of reinstatement of divine feminine power, and honoring and understanding the divine feminine in our world. So, yes, new name. Now, it's been a really interesting day today, morning, because we had this whole pre-show. It would have been a fantastic show, but what we were processing was too personal to share. It's going to be material that is going to inform future sessions, and then and much will be shared when we're ready. So stay tuned, because it's some good stuff. But we're almost we almost didn't record today because feeling like, we just worked through a lot.
We an hour and a half.
Yeah. I'm surprised we're still here.
I know.
But we're still here, and the consensus is that we're going to be doing a lot of videos about ways that we align with spirit. Excuse me, I have a sneeze coming. I don't know if it's going to happen. Ways that we align with spirit and heal ourselves and help others, to facilitate healing in others. And we just have a lot of experience in this area, and there's some juicy things that we use. And so along those lines, we're going to get started today with channeling. And Lee is going to channel for us. And just because that's what wants to happen today. Yeah. And so without further ado, I think there's some guides waiting to talk to us, and some messages that want to come through. And my guess is that it's going to be related to what we've been working through personally, but we'll get personal later.
Yeah.
This is for the guides.
Right.
Okay.
And when we did try to go in with a specific question, it really just felt like the intention we're holding is to take something from our hour and a half discussion that really wants to be brought to the community, which is you. So we don't have a specific tell us about this. It's more about, we just did this hour and a half long process, and how can we bring that to the community in the most compassionate and impactful way right now. So,
well put. Yeah. That's perfect.
So,
yeah.
I might turn this, if I turn this light off, does it get way too dark?
No, I mean, your white balance changes, but I don't mind. I think everyone can. Yeah, it looks distracting and painful.
Huh?
It looks a little painful to have that in your face.
It's
yeah.
It's the sacrifice, right, of lighting.
Yeah.
So, all right. And I'm just going to take a moment or two to kind of connect back in. And what I'm doing is I'm just connecting to my guides and the way that I receive information. I'm an empath, so I really feel a lot. Also claircognizant, so I get a lot of just knowing, and I receive a lot of internal imagery. So I don't see anything out in front of me, but I do. It's almost like there's like an internal card catalog filled with imagery and symbols, and they just get kind of pulled out as necessary, and then I interpret them the best way that I'm able to. So that's a little about my process.
Thank you.
Yeah. And for anybody who does channel or is interested in it, it's a great way of really developing your trust in your intuition, and I just feel like it's a great way to strengthen your relationship to self and trust. And that's what a lot of us are here to heal and learn, is really reconnecting that bridge back to our own knowing.
Okay, I have a question before you start, though.
Yeah.
If you, because I think it's important just to speak to this briefly. We don't have to go way into it. Maybe we'll go more into it another time, because I think new people who are opening up, there's always the question, where is that information coming from? Is it coming, like, how do you make sure that you are getting information from, or how do you discern where, like, whether you're getting information from a source that you ought to be listening to?
Right. I think for me, I'll just speak from my experience. It's
Yeah.
about setting up the connection in such a way, like with the intention of receiving information that's very clear and is compassion based, and is of your soul team, your spiritual team, your higher self, right? So that we're really connecting to the aspects of your higher self or of your guidance that is here, that that you can trust. And I actually do think that that's part of the process when I said of building trust is of, when you're doing this, to start to I would say like a separate practice or a related practice would be in your own day-to-day life. You know, if you've made a decision of checking in and saying with yourself around a decision, say, and all right, am I in trust with myself around this decision? And if you are, what does that feel like in your body? What does that feel like in your emotional body to be in self-trust? What does it feel like when you're making a decision or you're in an action out of fear, which is the opposite of trust?
Right.
So,
right.
Okay, I've made a decision and I'm checking in with myself about it. How am I feeling? Oh, it actually feels like that decision feels based in fear. How does that feel in my body? How does that feel in my system? It's almost like you're creating like an energy, like a thumbprint of like trust, self-trust, and more like fear-based.
Yeah.
So I would almost say that, like, if you're thinking about building your own practice of channeling information from your higher guidance, it's so much about also your relationship to self.
Yeah.
Because higher guidance is yourself, right?
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. And I mean, a lot of people will probably notice that the way you're using the word trust, you could also use the word love. It's love-based. If it doesn't feel loving, if it doesn't feel good, you know, like, walk away. That's I have a pretty strong tarot practice, and I learned that a long time ago. If I do a reading that just doesn't feel right, walk away.
Yeah.
And of course, the funny thing is that 90% of the time, and that doesn't happen to me very often, because usually these days I can tell, like, right away, I see, yeah, that reading is exactly what I need, even though I may understand more of it later. But even 90% of the time, if I walk away, I'll realize later, oh, it was a love-based reading and it makes perfect sense. It was in a moment of fear, or, I misinterpreted it in a more fearful way or in a more self-condemning way because of the space I was in.
Yeah.
But so it's the same, I think, whether you're journaling, whether you're doing automatic writing, any creative thing, or even if you want to teach. I mean, there's so many ways that we channel that we don't even know we're channeling. But if you're always just looking at how does it feel, where's it coming from? Is it coming from love? Is it coming from trust? Then you can trust it, whether you're calling it channeling or whether you're calling it fiction writing or painting or what screenplay or whatever. So Yeah. So, okay. Now I think that we laid some good groundwork there.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And you know, that piece too, I've had, just to add, I've definitely had journeys. I do a lot of journey work, and I've had journeys where there has been something in my field that I wasn't quite sure of. And it's exactly what Una was saying. You always have the ability to, you know, kind of step back, no, not for now, and go back into a space that feels safe to you, so where you can process and kind of work some of the things out. I think no matter what it is or whatever you come to, there's a learning in it. There's always
Yes.
going to be a learning. And I think that's the most important part.
Yeah.
You know, knowing that you have choice and free will here to connect or to step back, and you can bring it back into a safe place, whether that's in your journal or if you're going to make a piece of art about it or whatever. And so anyway,
It's good
that's a whole
stuff.
nother, that'll be a whole nother show.
Yeah, but I feel like we almost had to talk about those things before we launch into channeling, and because there's so many people channeling out there that I think we have to be very clear about where we're coming from when using channeling as a tool, as a communication tool.
Yeah. And just always remembering that the for me, this right relationship to power. When I'm channeling, I'm not giving my power over to my perception of another being who knows more than me or has something that I don't have. I really just feel like I'm opening up another channel of perception and of receiving, and then it's up to me to make meaning out of it, you know, whatever it is that I'm receiving, and to use my free will to do what I will with that, right?
Nice. Yes.
And so I think this piece around power and the ways that we give power, or we abandon our own power or our own trust in ourselves. That's, I think, when we start getting into like territory where people get really afraid and, oh, or there are these beings that are going to come in that are more negative.
You can be influenced.
Can be influenced, right? So I think we'll do another show on that, but
it's really, and that relates very much to what we were processing earlier right there. So I'm not surprised. That I think that's really important, and that's probably enough. I think that's enough for people to digest about that right now. Let's get to the juice.
The juice, all right. So, and I feel like that's actually part of the juice.
No, you're right. It was, and already stuff was coming through each of us because we didn't plan any of that.
No. So I don't know where this is going to go, but what I'm most present to right now is the feeling of grief, and that there is the oceans of grief, tides of grief, the waves of grief lapping upon the shore, and that it can feel like the wellspring of grief is coming from within. And sometimes we feel quite alone with our grief, but that there's also this larger ocean of grief, and that we are at a time and place in our history right now where this ocean of grief is really becoming hard to shove under the rug. If you can imagine trying to shove an ocean under a rug. I mean, that seems almost impossible, right?
Yes.
But that's kind of how I'm seeing it. And like, you're like kind of putting the waves back in, and like, but it doesn't want to stay. It's water. It's not going to stay under. So it almost feels like what our community here that we're building really right now needs to be in connection with or an awareness around is the own grief that they're harboring, and the way at which it really wants to rise, and the way in which, because we don't really come from, at least in North America, in the main culture. I know there's lots of subcultures, but we don't really have tools and rituals and spaces where this ocean of grief can be in her full glory, because she is glorious. And that's what we're mistaken about, because it hurts. And we have a hard time tolerating and being with emotional pain.
Yeah.
The tears that you feel, the ocean of grief arising within, is a cleansing grief. And there's beauty with this. If you can imagine Kwan Yin, the goddess, the bodhisattva, and she cries tears, and she's also the goddess of compassion, right? So with this grief is immense capacity for compassion. And to the extent that we wall ourselves off from our grief is the extent to which we are blocked in a true, clear compassion. And this is problematic for people whose identities are formed around being compassionate, good people. Right? So, so Kwan Yin would take all of her children into her arms and allow them to bathe in the tears of her grief, which is to bathe in the tears of her compassion. And they cleanse and they run off the skin. I just got goosebumps all over.
Me too. Exactly then I'm covered with goosebumps.
Mm-hmm. Kwan Yin is a personification of this compassion. And I'm, in the moment, just really almost overwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
And I experience it as the golden light. So for those of you, which is to say all of us, because we all share and drink of and swim in this great ocean, that you can imagine your own churny ocean within, bring the golden light into it. You can visualize this in your heart space. And so we're bringing her compassion, that golden energy. It's an archetypal energy, but it's a very real energy of the universe and beyond. This merges the wisdom. This brings wisdom to our grief. There's tethered grief. And by that, I mean grief that is tethered almost like an anchor has sunk it. And it can't do what it needs to do. It can't move in the way it needs to move. This golden light that you can call in and bring forth, and if you want to, you can use somebody like a Kwan Yin, or if you need that personification, because that helps your human self to connect with that very kind of multidimensional energy. So be it. Kwan Yin's a great one. When you call forth, it brings wisdom into this fundamental aspect of the human condition. And it's not an intellectual wisdom. It's a wisdom that will animate you from within, from the heart. And it'll allow you, instead of attempting to hide the ocean beneath a flimsy mat, it'll allow you to swim freely in this ocean. I'm getting images of funeral, like kind of our typical funeral scenario, right? Where there's almost a dourness to it.
Yeah.
There's dread. Yeah. There is immense pain. There is dissociation. But what she's showing me is that, oh, interesting. The ancestors often gather at these and it's almost like they're in a procession. And it seems like some of the ancestors gather to help things along, and other ones are kind of they were stuck in their own kind of leaving process. So there's a piece around unresolved grief, or grief that has not really fully come into and been infused and recognized for its wisdom, where it can get stuck. And we really see this in the way that we honor death in the culture. So we have rituals around somebody passing, and often is the case that there's a lot of stuck energy here. And this goes, again, back generations. There's a way that we don't know how to tend to our dead and to those crossing over. And I think that we're looking in at, say, a funeral and how people pass in our culture, because that's kind of what we go to initially when people think of grief. They think of like somebody physically dying and things like that. This is a very concrete way that we can relate to it. But similarly, if you can imagine like a funeral occurring within your own body, within your own system, within your own little microcosm, how are we honoring being with, or really stuck in loss within? And how many and who of our ancestors are kind of with us and influencing that process? So I'm kind of stepping in because I'm like, whoa, this is getting way out there, and I feel like it's big. So like I'm asking, like, how can we bring it back to something that somebody can really, a stepping stone?
Yeah.
If somebody is interested in being in wise relationship with their grief, what is like the seed that they can plant, or where is it that they can start with? And again, it goes back to that simple practice of going into the heart space, connecting to your own wellspring of grief. And she's saying wellspring because it's actually something that we can celebrate. It doesn't have to be this really horrendous thing. That the grief, there's so, like, the imagery is all around water, but it's like oceans, but it's rivers flowing. Grief is one stream of the river. And when it is allowed to flow, there is, if you can imagine, a joy that is with that. It's really hard for us to put those two together in our human experience, because grief is so painful. But she's saying, from like a bigger perspective, that grief and joy are sisters. But we've been conditioned out of that knowing.
We want the light and not the dark side of the wave.
Right. So when she says wellspring, I think it's a way for us to be able to reframe grief, because the other image I see of it is just this like black thing, it's like this heavy, because it's so painful, and we don't want to lose, the people that we love, and come to terms with the parts of ourselves that we've abandoned or have been hurt or whatever. So I think that this image of the wellspring, or of a spring in general, there's life to that, and there is a vitality to it. Grief is not just about a death or a loss. There is a vital nature to, again, this ocean thing of swimming in the ocean of grief. It's what allows us to access all of her functions. and all of the flavors and aspects of that stream.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost like people talk about ascension, right? We hear a lot about ascension, and Earth is ascending and people are ascending and evolving. But it's like switching the frequency a little bit and opening your bandwidth up. That, you know, we're really connected with one kind of frequency of grief. But what she's saying is that there's actually, like, it's a much broader bandwidth, and it's an opening. There's an opening there. So just going to that practice of, you know, maybe going inward and investigating what is my grief. If there's an ocean of grief, or if there's grief inside, what does that look like in my current paradigm? If there's an image or a feeling with it. And then she's inviting, like, this idea of the wellspring or of the ocean, and to really connect that to water, because water is also, I don't know if mutable is the word, but water is a conductor, and it can really absorb energy. So if you use the imagery of the wellspring or the ocean connected to the grief, and you bring in the golden light of Kwan Yin or whatever personification, if you need that imagery, that foundation of the water is going to really help that energy become infused with the golden light, the compassion of source. And that is where, and that's all that's needed, really. You don't have to know. So I've got a psychology background, and so it's kind of flipping back to that, like in the Western paradigm of psychology, we need to, okay, so it's grief if it lasts for 6 weeks or however much it's in the DSM. I can't remember right now because I don't even look at my DSM anymore. And after this, then it becomes this or whatever, you know, and then we need to have these treatment plans.
Depression.
And it becomes depression, and then and then we pathologize it, and no. That is not what we came here for. To you, Una, she says, like, this is where we can look at kind of like patriarchy or conditioning or whatever. I think she's saying you, because I think that you would have a lot to say about this.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another show.
Yeah.
But
pathologizing with feelings to suppress women.
Yeah.
By the way, you're a little bit out of frame, Lee.
Oh, I moved that.
You bumped yourself.
I didn't even know that. Thanks.
Okay, you're welcome. Sorry, I felt it wasn't so important enough to interrupt you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
At least it went to the clean end of the room. Oh, the trickery. But let me just. I didn't even know I was doing this crystal thing. Let me just see if there's anything else, because I really want to keep it user-friendly for now.
Yeah.
She's just saying that your tears are an honor and a privilege. It's almost like she just wants to bring you so much love and respect, and to your tears are a gift. And it's not wanting you to stay in the tears, but it's just wanting us to expand our perception and our awareness around tears, around the grief, that they may be portals. That this is really important because of how programmed we've gotten around all of this.
Your tears are deprogramming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, our tears we've been programmed around the tears. This is the metaphor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she is saying that it is a great privilege to receive your tears. It's a
Yeah.
great, and so from that perspective, from that higher vibrational, this entity or this energy feels that it is honoring your tears so deeply. She would like you to bring that piece of her into you, so that as you cry and you feel tears on your own skin, that you can say to yourself and to the tears and to all of it, I honor you. This is a privilege. It's so that we are deprogramming ourselves.
Yeah.
In a sense, that this becomes a tool, like a tool. Like that's not even really the word, but it becomes in and of itself a way to deprogram.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clear all that junk out and see what wants to be born in that space.
Yeah, because as we reinterpret, as we honor our tears and interpret them in this healing, from this higher perspective, that will allow us to cleanse and transmute grief, so that we feel our full emotional, we have a larger emotional range. We can feel the full range of joy and love, because it's the misinterpretation of grief and the condemning of grief keeps us either tied in the grief where the tears seem endless, or we block everything and can't feel anything at all.
Exactly. Yes. And to that, I just get, it's almost like a right on, like your understanding is on track.
Thank you.
I get to you directly, Una, or whoever's here, like I think it's the all of them,
the listeners,
the energies, the words I get for you, Una specifically. You are a warrior of light.
A warrior of light.
Yeah, which to me, I'm always like, is Una a warrior? She's a healer, but there's oh, you are a warrior.
I'm glad that you're saying this, because I was yelling twice yesterday, and kind of those two kind of therapeutic conversations where I ended up yelling, and it was to counteract some programming. I was railing against some programming of that had really disempowered and invalidated the people I was speaking with.
Yeah.
So, and I just noticed, man, because I don't usually yell in sessions.
Yeah. It felt really important. Like they wanted to use those specific words for you.
Wow.
So that's for you.
Cool. Thank you.
Do what you will with it. So I'm
actually
going to, let me just close out a little bit and just thank, wow, the energy is just so, I'm crying, but it's a really good, it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Obviously that's what we just talked about.
Yeah, we get it now.
I'm like, oh, it's not bad tears.
Yeah. Not the bad kind of grief.
It's the good kind. And I just wanted to thank the stone too. I didn't even realize that it was here. I'm just saying thank you, and may this ripple out to wherever and whomever wants or desires or needs to be in contact with it. And I just keep it's coming through as Kwan Yin, but she's like she is an archetype for all.
Yeah,
this is for everybody.
Yeah,
everybody, and it's not just about light dark, like only light. It's everybody, everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
I'm excited to listen to it because I usually like I remembered the gist, but I don't remember most of what I just said.
Yeah, we'll be able to rewatch it very soon, and of course I'll post it very soon. What was your stone that you were holding? I'm curious.
I always hold on one second. I have it written down because for whatever reason I cannot keep the name of it in my head. But it's
Is it smoky quartz?
no, it is. I'm pulling it up, and I don't know why I can't ever remember the name of it. It's not. Hold on one second.
It's not citrine.
No. Ah, not iolite, not labradorite. It's it's usually right here. If for some reason I can't find it, oh my gosh, you gotta be.
We can write it in the notes later.
Yeah, let's do
Check
that.
down below if you want to know about Lee's crystal.
I've like looked up the name of this stone like 15 million times, and I can never retain the name of it.
It's lovely.
It's one of my favorites. It's a really, what I do know about it, it's a great stone for journeying with. So I will use it if I'm journeying a lot, and I will find the name of it. I really just need to program it into my memory.
Yeah,
That's really what I need to do. But I can't for whatever reason.
I'll show you what I was holding while you were channeling.
Oh, wow.
That's what I've been playing with. Is
it a shell?
It's a shell. It's a shell that's kind of a bit of a fragmented, sort of worn down, but still a beautiful shape, still a beautiful form.
Right.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting when we went right to ocean stuff.
I always get it confused with iolite. It's lodolite. Lodolite.
I have never heard of it.
And that's why I always have a hard time remembering it, because I'll say, oh, it's not iolite, it's lodolite. So it's shaman stone, a journey stone, assists with journeying, seeing auras, clearing negativity.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So, wow, that was so profound, so right on, and it also relates to some of the stuff that we talked about in episode 1. You know, like the shoving stuff under the rug, and right. How we want to suppress things, how we've, yeah, I mean, people can go back and contrast and compare, but this is a big theme for us because we are about the freedom and releasing suppression and being in integrity, being in authenticity, and all of the power and beauty that brings. That's where the gold is. So, I don't want to just rattle on with. Well, I shouldn't. That was a suppressive thing to tell myself.
How about we can?
I feel kind of complete.
We will rattle on in many more episodes.
Yes, well put.
To infinity. Yes,
and I thank you all for being with us. Whoever this reaches, whenever it reaches you, I'm sure it'll be I trust that it's the right thing at the right time. Thank you for clicking like. Thank you for sharing if you feel moved to, and thank you for subscribing. We're going to be we're moving all of the videos from my Una Tager channel to our Sophia Risen channel. So if you found us through the Una Tager channel, please go over to Sophia Risen and subscribe there, because that's where you're going to be getting the feed of the new videos for Sophia Risen, because we wanted to share a channel for this. So thank you so much, Lee. I just kind of, for a first video I mean, not for first, for any. It was so good.
Oh,
Really like it.
just disclosure, we've never channeled publicly before.
No, yeah, this is your first time ever channeling publicly, and you just went with it, and you were so brave. And now I kind of get the stuff we were processing before. I'm seeing a connection with why that had to come up before you were able to allow yourself to do this. And I'm just incredibly grateful and look forward to us kind of unpacking that more.
Right.
In any way that it's going to be helpful for the community, or any way you're comfortable, because it's, whoa, I mean, when you step into a larger version of yourself, you're right, right before you really show up, you're gonna confront the stuff that's in the way.
Right.
And it's there for you to let go of. It's there for you to decide. It's there for you to choose if you're gonna believe that anymore. So this is such an amazing process for us, and I hope by extension for the listeners.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
See you next time.
See you next time. Take care.
Bye. Take care.